This is a new bench I have just built. It is built from a single sheet of plywood, hinges, couple of latches. It's super quick to put up. So let me put it up for you just to show you how quick it is. And there we go, we are ready to rock and roll, if you will. It is pretty sturdy. Admittedly, I don't know how long it's going to hold up. That's literally just because of the hinges. So just to show everybody, we have the hinges here. It's the same on the inside. So just because of that, I don't know how well it's going to hold up. But it does feel pretty rigid. I am happy with it for what I want it for. The whole bench is geared towards taking to somebody's house and maybe, you know, fitting a built-in wardrobe. That's what it's geared towards. I am going to give you the sizes. Just before I do give you the sizes, a couple of things I want to go over if you do plan on making this. First thing is this dovetail key. This is a sliding dovetail key. This is set about 15 degrees. I cut this on the track saw, dead easy. What this helps to do, it helps to, when you're pulling the thing apart, it helps it to align. And also, once it's locked into place, it helps with a racking motion, so it does pretty much stop racking. I've got two cutouts here, and these are like a couple of millimeters, and all this is for is so that this section passes the hinges, because obviously there's hinges on the underside. Just to give you a look inside, obviously we've got these hinges. These are piano hinges. All of the hinges on here are 300 millimeters long. So I used two on this side, two on that side. There's two on the top, and there's also two here. One thing I did have to do was to add a bolt. This is to stop this from dropping out on itself or dropping in on itself, because this is actually one of the cutouts of the side. Something else I added were these latches. I put two latches on, and do actually add quite a lot of stability when they're not on. You can see there's actually is movement. So with these on, it does actually lock things into place quite nicely. The sizes are as follows. So the top is 1057 millimeters in length. Width, it is 606. So something to note about that, it has been cut, and that's where it hinges. So one of the things that I did intend on doing, which I screwed up with, was to add one of these, or rather two of these toolbox latches here and a little bit further along, and that was gonna like act as the same sort of principle as the sliding dovetail key, but I didn't take into consideration the thickness, and I didn't leave enough of an overhang to accommodate these. So if you wanted to do that, you could do that, because you can actually get the 90-degree ones of these. But personally, now that I've done the sliding dovetail, I think that's a better option, me personally. The size of the side, that is 920 in length by 782. Now obviously you might want to change that depending on the height of yourself. The cutouts at the bottom, these are 2 inches in thickness, or 50 millimeters. And what I've done for the frame going all the way around, that is 100 millimeters. So 100 millimeters, 100 millimeters all the way around. The only place that does change is this section here. So instead of these being 100 millimeters, these are actually 75. The top and the bottom do stay at 100 millimeters. That's just to follow the uniform of the rest of the bench. And the sizes or the total size of this is 500 millimeters. That's with the 2 panels. Don't forget, these are actually 2. So the total width is 500. So that's 250 millimeters each. And the total height of 782 millimeters, exactly the same as this side, obviously. And the shelf inside is obviously 500 millimeters in width, if you will, and obviously it's just one of the cutouts from one of the sides. I'm going to put this down and then I'm going to show you how I made it. So here you can see us using my track saw to do all the internal cuts. Track saw does really well, gets the majority of the cuts. I do have to then follow up with my Ryobi saw, but it doesn't take long and it's a really quick process. I don't mind it at all. I was slightly short on some of the components or all the amount of ply, so I did end up gluing one section of ply to another. This was the only glue up I had to do, and it's not too bad considering I got a full bench out of one sheet of ply. While I was waiting for the glue to dry, I made a start on the other side of the gable. Exactly the same as the front and the back of the bench, marked out. I used the track saw to do all the internal cuts, finished up with my Ryobi saw. I did, however, have to use my multi-tool because the 2 top and bottom cuts were really small, so the multi-tool did come in really handy for this. Once I had the majority of the components cut out, I started putting the hinges on, and these are just piano hinges, 300mm long. And what I will say about them is that you should take your time and try and get them aligned as much as humanly possible. I then lifted the whole thing on top of the bench, lined everything up and basically just screwed the thing together. This was probably the most easier part because everything had been lined up, and this part just went together really easy, thankfully. Next up, I add 2 lips for either side, and this is to support the shelf. Basically, if you put anything heavy on it, which I probably will, it's going to help to weigh the bench down or to stabilize the bench. So obviously I want lips underneath to take the weight, even on the hinge side, because I don't want the hinge taking all of the granny. I added small chamfer just with me small Japanese canna. This is just to help ease the shelf in and out, and I've done this on both sides, and it does make all the difference. I then cut the top and add the hinges. As I said before, earlier in the video, I should have allowed a little bit more and I would have been able to use the latches. So that's something you might want to take into consideration if you do want to use the latches. Here you can see is cutting the little housing sections for the hinges. Obviously the hinges need to pass through here, so it's better to leave a little bit more than you need. I then added the top just to make sure everything was working as it should, and I was happy with all the dimensions, so on and so forth. I decided that I wasn't overly happy with the dimensions, so I decided to remove some material from the top of the bench. This was going to help with weight and also some of the spring, because there was so much overhang. And after I'd finished doing this, I was a lot happier. Also, the cut you're seeing us doing now, it's pretty much flush with the back of the bench, and this is going to help us to clamp things flush to the bench. Here you can see me marking out for the dovetail key. This is also tapered. I cut this on my track saw, set at 15 degrees, nothing special, but it does a really good job. Basically get it marked out, and I cut it with my Japanese saws. I added some wax to the sliding dovetail. This is obviously just to make things slide that little bit more easier, which obviously it does. Once I was happy with that, I put the top back on, obviously fixed the dovetail key into place with some screws, and there you can see how it operates. When that was done, I drilled all the dog holes, and then I used a countersink just to take all the sharp edges off. After that, I added a toolbox latch, which obviously adds a lot of stability. Really happy with that. And the very last job was to install this bolt to stop the shelf from flapping about in transport. And there you go, that's the bench finished. Any questions, I'll be happy to answer, and thank you for watching.